When I lost my job, no one in my family yelled. I think that's what made it worse. At first, they were practical. Take your time. You'll find something. My father sent me job listings I'd already applied to. My sister forwarded motivational quotes like they were instructions. It all sounded supportive if you didn't listen too closely. But small things changed. They stopped asking how interviews went. When bills came up in conversation, the room tilted subtly toward me. My brother once laughed too casually and said, "Must be nice not having to wake up for anything." I laughed too. I needed them to think I could take a joke. 3 months became 6, savings thinned. I started sleeping later because there was nowhere to go. That, apparently, was proof of something. One evening I came home from a failed second-round interview and found my belongings stacked in boxes by the hallway closet. Not thrown, not vandalized, just arranged. My mother stood in the kitchen, wiping an already clean counter. "It's not forever," she said without turning around. "You need to learn to stand on your own. We're not helping you by letting you stay." I remember nodding. That's what embarrasses me most. I nodded like this was a reasonable corporate restructuring and I was the underperforming division. No one shouted. No one cried. I carried the boxes to my car. For a long time I told myself they were right. The first year on my own was ugly and quiet. I took contract work, night shifts, temp assignments. I learned how to read lease agreements because I almost signed a terrible one. I learned how to track every dollar because no one was there to cushion a mistake. I stopped explaining myself. That was the biggest change. I stopped narrating my life to them. If they texted, I answered politely. If they asked how things were going, I said, "Steady." There's a dignity in steadiness. By the 3rd year, I had stable work. Not glamorous, but consistent. I built credit. I studied real estate documents the way I used to study job postings. When I signed the papers for a modest 2-bedroom house, I didn't post about it. I didn't tell anyone until it was done. It wasn't revenge. It was privacy. 5 years after I carried those boxes to my car, I had a small house with clean walls and a mortgage entirely in my name. I liked the silence. It didn't judge me. Contact from my family had grown warmer over time. Birthdays. Occasional dinners. My sister once said, "We always knew you'd bounce back." I didn't correct her. Then one Saturday afternoon, they let themselves in. I was in the kitchen when I heard the front door open. Laughter. Familiar footsteps. My brother's voice first. "We figured we'd just come by. You still had the old spare key system, right?" I walked into the living room and saw all of them standing there, surveying the space like inspectors. My father nodded slowly. Nice. Really nice. There was something off in the way they were looking at the walls, the corners, measuring. "We've been thinking," my mother began, settling into my couch without asking. "Families should be together. What's the point of you living alone like this?" My sister chimed in, "You don't have a family out here. We're your family." It landed like a verdict. My brother gestured around. "And honestly, this place makes more sense if we all use it. The house shouldn't just be yours. That's not how family works. Not a request, a claim." I felt something old try to rise up in me, the reflex to explain, to negotiate, to prove I deserved what I had. The version of me who stood in hallways nodding at boxed belongings. I let the silence stretch instead. My father stood and walked toward the hallway. "We'll figure out rooms later. It's temporary until we decide the next step." I watched him reach for the doorknob to my office. I didn't argue. I stepped into the kitchen, closed the door softly behind me, and dialed 911. "My family entered my home without permission," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "They're refusing to leave." The dispatcher asked if there were weapons. "No." "Any threats?" "No, just presence." Assumption. Within minutes there was a knock at the door. Firm. Official. The sound cut through the house like a line drawn in ink. 2 officers stood on the porch. I opened the door and stepped aside. They entered, calm and procedural. "What seems to be the issue?" I explained. "Owner. Deed in my name." No consent given for entry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't look at my family. My brother scoffed. "This is ridiculous. We're his family." One of the officers turned to him. Do you live here, sir? Well, we're about to. That's not the question. IDs were requested. I retrieved my documentation from a folder I kept in the hall drawer. The officer examined it briefly and nodded. This property is legally his, he said, not unkindly. If he's asking you to leave, you need to leave. My mother looked at me then. Really looked. You'd call the police on your own family? There it was. The appeal to guilt. The old lever. I met her eyes. You didn't ask. No anger. Just fact. The officers waited, not dramatic, not forceful. Just present. Something shifted in the room. Not in my house, but in them. The realization that I was no longer available for rearrangement. They gathered their bags slowly. My brother muttered something about betrayal. My sister shook her head like I was the unreasonable one. My father didn't speak at all. When they stepped past me toward the door, no one touched me. The officers remained until their car pulled away. After the door closed, the house was quiet again. But it wasn't the same quiet as before. It felt claimed. I stood in the living room for a long time. There was no surge of triumph, no desire to text anyone what had happened, just a steady awareness that a line had been drawn in a way that couldn't be argued with. The next morning, I changed the locks. It wasn't symbolic. It was practical. For years, I thought self-worth was proven by endurance, by how much dismissal you could survive without cracking. I was wrong. Sometimes it's proven by who you're willing to disappoint. I don't know if my family will ever understand that afternoon. Maybe they'll tell the story differently. Maybe I'll always be the son who chose strangers in uniform over blood. But when I sit at my kitchen table now, there's no bargaining in my head. No rehearsal of apologies. Just steadiness. And this house mine standing exactly where it is.